Is this on? Can you guys hear me? All right. Welcome, Jay.
Hi.
Jay Duplass, along with his brother Mark. Do we acknowledge your brother Mark, or is this your opportunity
Sure.
not to pretend that you don't have a brother Mark?
It's all me, guys.
It's like
all me.
between Cohen and the Everly brothers is the Duplass brothers. Co-writers and directors of 5 features: The Puffy Chair, Baghead, Cyrus, Jeff Who Lives at Home, and the Dodeca Pentathlon. Some of these were made independently, which led to the opportunity to work within the studio system, first with Fox Searchlight and next with Paramount Vantage. Correct me if I'm wrong. What's impressive about these films is, for those of you who've seen them, is that other than the appearance of stars, it's actually difficult to tell which ones were made independently, which ones were made in the studio system, which is an impressive feat, carrying one's approach and aesthetic relatively untouched into the studio system. In short, the Duplass brothers started making films and the studios decided they wanted their stories. Please join me in welcoming Jake Duplass. So, give us chapter 1 of your story, before everything.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in New Orleans, and despite it being a city of artists and musicians, I didn't really have any awareness of the film industry. No one was shooting there. Didn't know anything about it except for the fact that I loved movies, and the first time I started experiencing that, I was told that cable would be coming to my neighborhood in 1982, and I didn't know what that meant. I just thought there'd be a giant cable, and I don't know, movies would be sent down a pipeline, maybe on water or something. I didn't know what it was, but they came into my TV, and you know, this was at a time, I guess, that HBO wasn't very regulated, so I would come home from school at 9 and 10 years old, and I would watch Ordinary People and Kramer versus Kramer, and you know, just hard-hitting dramas. So I kind of grew up on those films and just thought they were piped in from some mysterious place, which it was, you know, Hollywood, I guess. And then I went to, you know, my brother and I made home movies throughout our, you know, teen years with our parents' home video cameras. But these were not films that projected any future success. They were absolutely horrible and embarrassing. But I ended up, you know, I went to a Catholic prep school. I was being groomed to be an academic person, and I went to university at University of Texas in Austin, and I fortuitously landed there in 1991 when Richard Linklater's Slacker was playing at the Midnight Theater. It's called the Dobie there, and it had a 4-walled midnight run for a year and a half. And it was the first time that I realized that human beings made movies, and very specifically, it was one of the first true, other than potentially Cassavetes, like a true DIY enterprise. It was made for $20,000 on 35mm film. So other than film, he pretty much, you know, probably just paid for, you know, pizza. Gas and pizza, yeah. And so, you know, my awareness started to get peaked, and as I went through college, I decided that I did love film a lot, and I started taking classes there, and I wanted to be the Coen brothers. Everyone in 1991 through 1995 wanted to be the Coen brothers.
I think it's still true, actually.
It might still be true. It switched to Tarantino in '95,
right.
And then I lost track. And then they went back in time, and then everyone wants to be Malik now, I think. Is that what's going on? So, you know, I tried to be the Coen brothers, and I failed miserably because they're the Coen brothers, and they are very, very good at being the Coen brothers. It's a very hard aesthetic to mimic. But what I did is I graduated from college, and that was the time that the Avid editing system, in 1995, the cheapest Avid editing system was $90,000. And in 1996, when I graduated, there was a huge price drop to $28,000. So my brother and I sold our cars and got a little bit of money from my dad and we bought an Avid editing system.
Wow, okay.
And we started editing movies, and we were just making bad art, editing bad art, and just steeping ourselves in this culture of like, you know, it was really kind of that first time that things were like, you could get your hands on video cameras. But honestly, throughout my 20s, I didn't make anything good, and I kind of went into this editing hole and really just spent way too much time editing poor projects. But I didn't really realize that subconsciously I was learning what not to do, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of practice by doing, I imagine.
Yeah, in editorial, it's painfully obvious what you should have shot and what you shouldn't have shot. And then I continued to make movies, but they weren't really working out. And I think it's because I was trying to be derivative. I was trying to be like other filmmakers. I was trying to be the Coen brothers.
Is this in material in terms of the stories you were talking, the way you were shooting it?
The type of stories, the way I was shooting it, I was just trying to be cool and quick and witty and all these things that I don't think that I am. And ultimately, I kind of woke up, I was 29, I was about to turn 30, and I didn't have any money. I was making $15,000 a year on side projects and eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
The Avid's now worth $5,000.
Yes. Oh, the Avid was worth nothing. I mean, it was insane. And you know, I said to my brother, I was like, I gotta be normal. I gotta do something different. And he said, no, we're gonna make a movie today. And I said, well, how are we gonna make a movie? Like, we don't have crew, we don't have 16mm film, we don't have lights. And because that's how we came up. I'm sure you came up the same way too. I mean, I came up like not on cutting 16 on Steenbeck, cutting 16 with razor blades and like gluing it shit together, you know? And he said, we're gonna make a movie today. He's like, come up with a movie. And I said, well, this thing happened to me yesterday. And he said, what was it? And I said, I tried to re-record the personal greeting of my answering machine, and I failed. And he said, what do you mean you failed? And I said, I think I had a nervous breakdown. And he laughed. But you know, I was in that place of just all is lost. And he thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And then I started giggling too. And then he said, okay, go get, my parents had left our home video camera there. It wasn't even a DVX. It was a one-chip DV camera. And we went to 7-Eleven and we bought a $3.50 tape. And we came back and I turned the camera on, my brother walked in the door and did the scene in one take. It was 20 minutes, and we edited it down to 7 minutes, and it went to Sundance, and it played in a short film program next to a film that cost $750,000, and ours was way better. And those people were really upset. But we got written up in Variety, and we got an agent and a lawyer, and it did more for our career than the previous 10 years of banging my head against the wall trying to be the Coen brothers.
We've got good news. We actually have that film here today, which we can prepare to screen up there. And then you can tell us what it did, because this is the perfect lead-in. This is called This Is John.
John Ashford. This is John Ashford at 512. Hi, this is John. Hello, you've reached John Ashford at 512-443-9321. I'm sorry I missed your call. Please leave me your name and number, and I will return your call as soon as possible. Hi, this is John Ashford at 512-416-9754. I'm sorry I missed your call. Please leave me your name and number, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Hi, this is John. Hey, it's John. Sorry I missed your call, but I will return your call as soon as possible. Call. Hey, this is John Ashford. I'm sorry I missed your call, but if you leave me your name and number, I will get back to you as soon as humanly possible. Thank you. Hey, this is John. What's up? Alright. Hey, it's John. Sorry I missed your call. Just leave me your number. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks. Hi, it's John Ashford. Hello. Hi, you've reached John Ashford. This is 416-9754. I'm sorry I missed your call, but if you could leave your... It's John Ashford. Hey, it's John. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your number. I'll give you a call back later. Thanks. Hi, this is John. I'm sorry I missed your call. No big deal. I'll call you back when I get in, and just leave me a message. Take care. This is John Ashford. This is 416-9754. I regret to inform you I am not home at the moment. This is John Ashford. I'm not home. Okay. Come on. Hi, this is John. Oh, fuck. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. This is John. I'm not home. I'm sorry. I don't want to stay here anymore. I want to go home. This is your last chance, John. You're going to press this button once, and after you're done, that's your message, okay? So, let's buck up here and fucking bite the bullet and make this happen, alright? I know you can do this. So let's just, come on, okay? There's nothing to be afraid of. Here we go. Hi, this is John. this is my last chance, so I can't stop now. I can't seem to get this to work for me, and I really don't know why. But this is my last try, so I guess this is going to be what you're hearing. I don't really, I don't care what you think, because I'm not afraid anymore, I had a long day, and I'm not home right now. If you leave me your name and number, I will call you back. Thank you, and have a great fucking day.
So what happened at Sundance? Did this lead directly to the puffy chair?
Well, we got an agent, and this agent said, okay, write a feature script. And we were like, okay. And then we went home, we said, we don't know how to do that. We don't know what we're doing. But we did write a feature script. And it was a little, it kind of, it's pretty good, I think. But it surprised the agent and impressed him. This is a very, very big time agent that will remain nameless. But there didn't seem to be any traction on it. It wasn't, we were relying on an agent to like bring us into the world, and as you know, that never happens. So what we did is the next year rolled around, and we decided we wanted to go back to Sundance with another short film because it was our lifeline to our dreams, and that we created another film this next time called Scrabble, and it involved my brother and his girlfriend in a kitchen playing Scrabble. So we upped the production value by one other human being. That film cost about $50, and we went back to Sundance with it. And then the next year, we came up with another short film which involved a group of people in a living room holding an intervention to force their friend to come out of the closet because they knew he was gay, but they weren't sure that he knew he was gay, and they wanted to help him. These are all real things, real life events. We were just taking, events from our own lives and those of our friends and sort of just exploiting like the desperate hilarity of these situations. And that film also went to Berlin and won a bunch of awards. And then finally, we were writing feature scripts, but they were like really big scripts that very different from what we had been doing, And then finally Sundance called and said, hey, when are you guys gonna make a feature? And so we thought about it, and we're like, yeah, we should just make a feature the way we've been making these shorts. And that's when we started to think about this movie called The Puffy Chair, which was, it was about exactly what we were going through at the time. We were both in our mid to late 20s. We had long-term girlfriends. We had no money. We were trying to figure out if we should get married or break up. On either day, either option seemed 100% viable. You know what I mean? It just, when you're in that place, I don't know anything. And we decided to make The Puffy Chair specifically because it was a road movie, and we knew we were good at making short films because we would take them to film festivals and people would like laugh at our faces, crazy amounts of laughter. And so we just decided to create I mean, it's so simplistic, our thought process, but it's just like a road movie is basically like 12 short films in a row. The road movie is a spine, and you can just hang 12 short films on it, and that's literally what we did. And
For those of you who haven't seen The Puffy Chair, I'd call it a lot more complex than that, actually. It's a beautiful, very simple story about a brother, a man and his girlfriend who are going to deliver, they found a puffy chair delivered for their dad for his birthday, and pick up their wayward brother along the way.
Yeah.
And of course, it all falls apart.
Yeah, it was stuff that we knew about, desperate acts that don't really mean anything to anyone other than the person who is doing it. You know, challenging relationship with your brother and your girlfriend, and that movie.
How to get into a motel without paying for 3 people.
How to get into a motel without paying for 3 people. The conflicts of our lives, you know. So pathetic and true. And you know, we still didn't have any money. We were just editing and shooting things on the side, and so we literally made The Puffy Chair a feature film for $15,000, and all we paid for was pizza and gas. That's it. That's what we had to pay for. You have to feed people and yourself, or else you will die. And then you have to pay for gas so that the vehicles can get to the location. And by vehicles, I mean vehicle.
That's why it was shot in a white van?
That's why it was shot in a van. Is because, well, my brother was a touring musician at the time. It was, you know, now what we call it is the available materials methodology of filmmaking. It's like, we have a white van, that's it. His girlfriend, his wife now, at the time, her family is from a small town in Maine, and we knew if we went there, we could shoot for free, and not only would the people let us shoot at their hotel, but they would have their friends and family come over and be extras in the movie because they thought that was cool, you know? So we built the movie around what we had and what we knew in our own lives, and our apartments in New York, and then our, you know, the van and Katie's family home. And luckily it was good, and it went to Sundance, and that's when everything really started to turn, because, and this is an interesting thing at a panel, because what we learned is when you make a great, not necessarily even a really good film that hasn't been done before, all of the questions that you have will be answered. You don't have to figure out distribution, they come to you. And that's the greatest thing that I learned is you don't have to figure all that stuff out. It comes when it happens.
There's a machine that's very hungry for the good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
As desperate as we are to get our stuff out in the world, distributors are even more desperate to find something that isn't terrible. You know what I mean? There's, as we all know, there's lots of terrible things. I mean, you go to a Cineplex and there's terrible movies in that Cineplex. That was a huge turning point for us, and that was when we started having meetings in Los Angeles, and we kept getting flown out to LA, and that was when we started to realize that despite what people in New York think, the film industry is not in New York, it's in Los Angeles, because we would meet with like our heroes in New York, like Ted Hope and Anthony Bregman, like these great producers, and they would be like, yeah, we're trying to get this film off the ground, I don't know if it's gonna happen, and then we would fly to LA and you'd go to a studio and they'd be like, we're making 12 movies this year, you want one? Now granted, those 12 movies are pretty bad, but it is overwhelmingly where people are making the movies, so we moved to LA, and we started developing our first studio movie, which is called Cyrus. Everything in Hollywood and everything within the studio system is very laborious and very difficult. And even the process of writing Cyrus with a studio and developing it with them was definitely hard for us. It was, especially because Mark and I came up, you saw our beginnings. We're just cavemen who just want, you know what I mean? We have our own brotherly language. We don't really think about the bigger picture of how everything works, and we weren't thinking like producers. So just the concept of just, also Mark and I, when we would develop something, we beat the crap out of each other and the idea on our own. So by the time it leaves our lair, it's been fully vetted in our world. Not to say that it's perfect in any way, but it was very hard for us to like receive all these other thoughts. So it took a really long time to get that to the place where it was at. And we ended up shooting 2 other features in the process before we shot Cyrus. We shot Baghead and released Baghead and sold it at Sundance, and we shot the Dodecapentathlon but had to shelve it. So we were essentially waiting forever. And so we decided that we would continue to make movies the way that we knew how. And, you know, we made those other films for under $100,000 a piece. Like they were handmade movies that we did, you know, in our hometowns. And, you know, we just didn't want to let anybody dictate whether we could make movies or not.
I find it kind of remarkable that even now, especially in the light of saying how long it took to develop Cyrus, that so much of your aesthetic, I mean, you're still camera operating, it survived in Cyrus, I guess.
And that was a big part of that process is like protecting the way that we made movies, because we just didn't want to. We knew how specific we were about what we wanted and what we love, and specific we were about how we do things. So we had to really develop a lot of mechanisms to protect what we did. Like we didn't have any crew on set. Like they were all in this like holding area, and the images were being broadcast to them.
So it's just you and Mark and the actors when you're actually shooting.
Yeah, when we're actually shooting, and so that way the cast was outnumbering the crew in the house, and it really felt like a real house, and they were really having a relationship. And there were a couple other guys in there who were capturing it sort of like, because I think our aesthetic really, the primary element of our aesthetic is that we bring the filmmaking apparatus to the actors. The actors are doing their thing, and they're allowed to go and where they want to go, say what they want to say. They have, you know, we employ improvisation, not just with jokes, but with the dramatic elements. Everything that they do is ultimately owned by them, and it's great because the other actors don't know what's going to happen. And I think I can talk about this, I can articulate it a little bit more now, but back in the caveman days, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We just knew what we wanted. But I think now there's something about our movies that you don't know what's going to happen next, and you have, there's a palpable feeling that anything could happen. And I now I know that that's what we were trying to protect. But it did take a long time to build that concept and build that aesthetic. So we were, in a weird way, in this. We've always operated in this weird state of low budge grace, where even with the puffy chair, you know, it cost $15,000, which was an enormous amount of money to us at the time, but it wasn't a $500,000 first feature. Where, you know, if you make your first feature and it costs $500,000 and it doesn't work and it's not great, you're probably not going to make another movie. Unless, I mean, just of your own volition. Like, you know, if you make a terrible $500,000 movie, you know, you're probably going to move on, because you've probably taxed your family and your loved ones and your friends, you know what I mean, so much.
Yeah, so, it's going to be extra hard to get another $500,000.
It really is. It would be twice as hard, or maybe 10 times as hard. So, you know, I think one of the other, the underdog sort of small world way that we have come about filmmaking has provided like sort of safe haven for us to fail, you know, the opportunity to fail, and if it does fail, you can get up and do it again. That's probably the only thing that we did right in our 20s, is all the terrible little Coen Brothers-y movies that we made them cheaply, and we continued to make things until something changed.
How much was Austin and what was going on in Austin during all of this a part of it? You guys really helped build a strong famous filmmaking community. And you're still, are you living in LA at this point?
We're in LA now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think because of Richard Linklater and Robert Rodriguez and Slacker and El Mariachi at the time, I think it absolutely was instrumental in just kind of waking us up to what can be done. And I think the biggest thing that we talk about, the way that we talk about the approach to DIY filmmaking is if you're going to make a tiny film, do not start with a budget. Start with a blank sheet of paper and write down the things that you absolutely need, and that's your budget. Because if you start with a line-itemed budget, you're going to fill every line item with $100 minimum, and you're going to have a $200,000 movie on your hands by the time it's done. But I think starting with that piece of paper and then bringing actors and crew, it's a strange thing, because when you don't have any money, the people who show up to make that film with you want to be there, need to be there, believe in your project, and it cuts the wheat from the chaff immediately. You don't have those like complainers on your set and these people who are like threatening to tank your movie. You know, that DP who's like super cocky and really condescending to everything that's happening on your set and ruining the fucking vibe from fucking second one.
Yeah.
You don't have any of that, and in a weird way, it works to your advantage. And I think it was nice for us because after This Is John, everyone knew, everyone saw it, most people liked it, it went to Sundance, so people were already coming to us. And then by the time Puffy Chair had come out, like I said, people kind of came running, not just like studios and like distributors, but we knew that John C. Reilly was having screenings of the film at his house. Like, he thought it was the funniest thing that had ever happened, and he was obsessed with it. And he was like bringing famous actors to his house to show them our movie. And we heard this and we were like, that was the first time we started to get strategic. We were like, let's write a movie for John C. Reilly. And that's what Cyrus was.
Gotcha, okay. So you've gone through this battle with this, well, I mean, the usual battle, I guess,
Yeah.
with the studio to get Cyrus. Cyrus comes out, it's an incredible film, very funny, does reasonably well, I believe. I don't know what the numbers were, anything like that. This
Reasonably
leads,
well, yeah.
Yeah, this leads to a second, even bigger studio movie in Jeff Lives at Home.
Yeah.
And still the aesthetic is there. Was it the same rules that applied here? You got some stars who want to work with you, and it's a different studio, so you probably have to go through the whole thing again.
Well, it was a little different because Jason Reitman produced it, and it was financed through his. He has a guy that he works with, Steve Rails, who runs Indian Paintbrush, and it was financed through them. And Paramount is really mostly the distributor, so they weren't heavily involved. And Jason loved the script so much, he just wanted to shoot it. He just wanted us to go. So yeah, we very specifically, we similarly attracted. We just found the actors, we met with them, we made sure that they loved what we were doing and that they appreciated it and wanted to be there, and all the actors did, and they were excited to be a part of it because, we're super sensitive and we can't deal with actors who are like fussy and mean. It's just something that, I think the stuff that we're doing we're not doing Apocalypse Now, we're not fighting wars in our movies, we're doing very subtle, relationship stuff. So the level of collaboration and understanding and appreciation has to be there. So we created that film, and that film was a big step up for us because it has a huge sort of like climactic sequence that happens on a bridge, and there's like cars and children in the water, and it was really kind of like a big step up for us. But we did the same thing where we kept the whole crew at bay, and we kept the moments really small. We kept the crew at bay except when there needed to be scuba divers in the water to prevent people from drowning. But
what kind of things are you eliminating? You're saying, we need this, we don't need this.
Well, I think the first thing is just keeping the crew to an absolute minimum, which is hard in Hollywood because there are union regulations and union standards. But just for instance, like our lighting scenarios my goal with lighting is not to make it look beautiful, but to make it look real. So the lighting standards are very different, and a lot of things are like pre-lit, and a lot of things are practical. So you just literally have just so many gaffers and electrics, grips and electrics who are like hanging in the wings, and I don't like when people don't have anything to do on a set, because then they,
Become grumbly.
Yeah, exactly. So I try and keep those numbers down as much as possible, and Yeah.
But it sounds like a key to the continuing production is that you've created an environment that's incredibly appealing for actors.
Yes.
And that they are essentially leading you through, or I guess running you through, creating the gauntlet that you can run, protect yourself from everything that's trying to change all of that.
That is exactly it. And since those features, we haven't made a feature since. We were working on an HBO show, but we've since gone back to our DIY style of like homemade filmmaking. But in the movies that we've produced, sort of like the Skeleton Twins that's opening this weekend here, and the one I love, there's just a lot of movies that Safety Not Guaranteed, that we've made with famous people, just putting them in our own homemade models of movie making. I mean, they're not under $100,000, but they're made very small with like crews of 20 people and just homemade movies. And we've had we feel like that's where we live best, actually. And we are lucky because we are attracting actors. I mean, we get actors calling us and just saying, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to do it. Because they can feel that real moments are happening in our movies. And, we don't really even do setups. We usually run the entire scene and then I film it, and then we'll break it up and pick up the pieces as we go. But they're truly experiencing, some of our takes run 15, 20 minutes. So real things are happening. Anything can happen on set. And I think certain kinds of actors are just dying for that.
Of course,
And so we have taken advantage of that. And, usually what we found is all it really takes to fund a film is like a bankable actor who wants to be in it. And we also will talk to them about what they want to do and like what they're interested in exploring and where they're at in their lives, and potentially even modify the character a little bit depending on what they want. And that's not to say that like we'll just do whatever it takes to like make any movie, but that's what we're interested in.
That's where the seeds are.
That's where the seeds are, and we're just interested in. And I think that also parallels our filmmaking aesthetic, which is we're not looking to exact a vision that was created inside of a little office that my brother and I wrote on a piece of paper. We're looking to find the most inspired version of that can happen. You're just trying to like create some lightning strike, like that film right there. It's really cool actually to tell you guys the story of where I was at the time, and then to see this because it's palpable. I don't know if it was to you, but it was like it brought me right back immediately to like how fucking desperate I was at that time, and how hilarious that is, But that's kind of, the fact that Mark could feel where I was and was portraying it right then and there. That sort of aesthetic is like what we're always looking for, is like that immediate physical, emotional connection to the feelings that are happening, and letting it be messy and letting it be, just tragically hilarious.
So now you've been moved over to HBO, into
Yes.
premium cable. You're working on an 8-episode, half-hour series called Togetherness.
Yes.
How's that different? And how's that the same?
Well, HBO is probably the best, easily one of the best studios to work for in Hollywood. So they're amazingly trustful and excited about what we're doing, and it's really, I don't know.
Did they come to you saying we want some
They
of this on our
talked to us
film?
about it,
Yeah.
and we definitely, we brought them an idea that ultimately, it was an idea that was like so sort of big, and continuing, that it was the first idea that we thought, well, maybe this is a TV show, maybe this is more than just a movie. And so we brought it to them. They loved it. They have encouraged us along the way. They've been very instrumental in like helping us sort of change our mindset from feature filmmaking to television. It's serial television, which in my mind is more like just like long form storytelling. It's like a feature film that just keeps on going. And I think the major difference is just changing the mindset from a closed universe of a feature film. Like I was telling you, you set up a feature film and you're already thinking, how am I going to pay all these things off? And it's quite a it's quite a it demands a lot of your sort of you have to like get your brain around paying everything off. But like in TV, and especially in a serial TV, it's an open universe. Everything continues to open, and it's actually much more parallel to life. And the story is really just about being 40 and having children and living in Los Angeles and trying to like make your dreams come true, and also like be a good family person, something that I know a little bit about, and just how like, you know, you're like this close to drowning at all times, and you're like on the most important phone call of your life, and you're changing a poop diaper at the same time. That's really what the show is about.
And actually, so I can see your aesthetic folding quite well into television. What are you finding that you can do in that show that you weren't able to do in features?
So many things. I think the primary thing, though, is that we're always looking for the subtlest form of something that will convey, you know, just because in our lives, I mean, we're not living in a war-torn country. We're pretty privileged people, and it's like, like I was telling you earlier, like, you know, the moment that you realize your relationship is falling apart is usually not a big drag-out fight in front of, like, a river in France. It's usually just, you know, in the kitchen or the bathroom, and she comes in, and the way that she throws the toothbrush away might indicate to you that this is over. So that level of depth and knowing of your characters and the situations is like beyond exciting to us, because I think like one of the greatest compliments that we had gotten when we were making our features is people would say, "Oh my God, it's like you had a camera in my bedroom." Like that fight that they had, you know, she would say like, "That's literally like verbatim what I just told my husband last night," and that's like what we live for, you know. It's like the ability to truly catch those super subtle passive-aggressive or aggressive-aggressive, or just the way that people really do life with each other. And so I think TV in this open universe and in this very subtle sort of like behavioral, continuous, I don't know, I'm just throwing a bunch of adjectives out in the world, but yeah, it's much more lifelike, I think.
And I guess the expectations for, you know, for drama, I guess, do you get less worry from the studio now about your aesthetic because it's on TV? It's not people coming to the theater; they need something big and explosive. And
I think there's less. I don't know if it's because of TV or just because we've made enough films now where people they're just a little more at ease with what we're doing. I think it takes a while, and I think also like when you're doing something new, or just different aesthetically, like. I hate the word brand, but people talk about it with us. Oh, the Duplass brand. I'm like, it's not a brand. It's just making stuff. But I do think that over time, it takes people a while to like figure out what you're doing, to catch on to it. You know, or at least that's what I tell myself. But I do think even about like the Coen brothers, who are my heroes, who I couldn't be, and my style could not be more different from them. But it is weird to think about the Coen brothers and realize that like, before Fargo, only filmmakers really knew and cared about the Coen brothers.
Yeah.
Now, in retrospect, I think everyone in the world loves Miller's Crossing and Blood Simple and Raising Arizona. But before then, before Fargo, it was really just filmmakers who were talking about.
I still remember the fight I got into after taking a friend to see Barton Fink.
Yeah,
like, what the hell is she going to take me to?
Exactly. So
Don't you get it? They're brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we can open up to the audience for questions now. Do we have is it a microphone thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Over here in the...
Is there a story or an idea or something that you haven't done yet that you've sort of just been like waiting for time to get to, something that you may have thought of, but just like, I'll get to that. I'll get to that eventually.
About 150.
Yeah, how many undeveloped screenplays do you have?
Oh, so many screenplays that I've developed over the course of a night in my mind, and want to do it, and I don't know. Yeah, I think quantity has always been one of our strong suits is we have hundreds of ideas, but the alchemy of the universe and actors and all the things have to kind of come together to make sure that it gets born.
Is there any other, I don't know if this is possible, is there any observation between what's gotten made and what hasn't? Or is it just luck of the draw in terms of here's a part, here's an actor? It's interesting.
Yeah, I would just say that ease is what makes things happen. Not struggling, not fighting. It's usually like the idea that seems so easy, you don't even want to do it anymore. You know that feeling where you're like, oh, like that. It's just so easy to make that. And then, you know, like for instance, before we made the second film, Scrabble, we were like coming up with all this epic shit. We're going to drop this epic shit on it. And then finally, we're just like, the deadline for Sundance is coming up. How about we just do a movie with you and your girlfriend fighting in the kitchen over Scrabble? Because that happened. and yeah, let's do that. And then, I find that the artist struggle, the opposite of the artist struggle is what is best for the artist. It's like the thing that just kind of falls out of you. And I think that and one really interesting thing that I talk about a lot is, you know, we all talk about film and we go to film school and we're obsessed with certain filmmakers. And I think the hardest thing really is to figure out like who you are and what you uniquely have to contribute to the world. And I don't know how to do that. It took this nervous breakdown for me to figure that out, to figure that what I have to offer the world is like the sort of sweet desperation that my brother and I have to just be something, to, you know, to find our way, and the sweet way that we treat each other, and some balance between that and how funny that stuff is, how pathetic and funny that stuff is. But I think that you can't really decide what you have to offer the world.
It's what makes you laugh in a way.
Yeah, it's like it has to happen to you, you know? And I think the culture that we live in, there's something really interesting about like the fact that we all watch movies and every person in the world thinks that could write a great screenplay because we're so familiar with movies. But that's not really the case. It's a craft. But also, all those thoughts are referential thoughts. Like when I wanted to be the Coen brothers, that's an external sort of application. And it wasn't until I got the shit beat out of me by life and by my own filmmaking and by my attempts to be someone else that this just thing happened. You know, this like the most private and ridiculous and personal thing, I finally revealed it. And I think, I think that is hard to get to. I don't know how to get to that thing. But that's the thing. That's the thing that film schools can't teach you, you know? And if anything, film schools will move you away from it because they're constantly showing you other people's things.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Really interesting stuff. I'd just like your thoughts on this whole idea that there's a movement away from small indie films. It's all tentpoles, super action hero movies, $200 million plus movies. Is there a place for those small movies you talked about, the $10 million movies? Or are those filmmakers moving to cable, to HBO, to FX? True Detective is a great example. Are we seeing a transition of that kind of filmmaking into TV and cable, or is there still room for that?
I think people are moving to TV and cable. I don't know. I guess the only way I can answer that question is to say that I don't think about stuff like that because it's too scary and it's too overwhelming. All I think about is what is the story that I want to tell, and I will tell it by any means necessary. You know what I mean? I'm sure that there are. I mean, the truth is I could have made Cyrus for probably $500,000 because John and Jonah and Marissa and Catherine would come to my house and make the movie at my house if I asked them to. So I've always sort of relied on that, I guess, that I can make. I mean, I could probably make it cheaper than that, but you know. So I think as filmmakers, it's important just to tell the story and not worry about where it lands or what will happen. And I think one thing that I feel really, really strongly about is if you can tell a great story and make a great movie, it will get into the world and you will be rewarded and people will see it. I mean, even my studio features, which by many industry and critics' opinions didn't get into the world theatrically the way that they felt like they should. They've had like this crazy expansive DVD life.
Yeah, I mean, Cyrus is 2010.
10?
Yeah, and it's still.
Oh, the DVD, it's like crazy because I think because, you know, John was hot off of Step Brothers and Jonah was hot off of, what's the kid? Superbad. And they expected Superbad meets Step Brothers, and it wasn't that, but it was really good, and it was something else entirely. And so it just took a long time for people to kind of come through, and I'm okay with that.
And now I mean, the long tail. Once things are on to Netflix or iTunes or DVD or whatever, they last so much longer now. People can discover it as if it came out last weekend.
It's really
in a
true.
way that never happened.
Yeah, I
before.
mean, people. If I go on the Twitter feed and I'm just look up Jeff Who Lives at Home, it's like 20 people are saying, "How come I don't know about this movie? This movie's great." It's like 20 people a day.
And I guess equally illustrate, both Baghead and The Puffy Chair are on Netflix. So 10 years after, 10 years ago, you could not go looking for an independent film.
That's right.
10 years prior and have it, that quick of luck finding it.
Yeah, I really
didn't-
believe stuff lives in the way that it needs to be. I mean, sure, I would love to have a bang-up theatrical thing happen, but I guess I don't even have expectations other than my main expectation is oh, please God, don't let me make a terrible movie. And then if it's not terrible, I'm like, oh, thank God, it's not fucking terrible. Oh, I think some people think it's great. This is incredible. Beyond that, I'm just like thrilled. And I think also what I've learned too is it doesn't really matter what happens to the film. If you make a great film, those people will come running. I mean, they really will. And if they're not running, you probably didn't make a great film. It's tough to say.
Tough to say, but true.
But I've made a ton of bad movies, and they did not come running. No one came running. But, even this just tiny little $7 film, I mean, it's just like people they came running.
The wine was that cheap, eh?
The what?
The wine was that cheap.
Yeah, that's true. The wine, I should quantify the wine. No, the movie probably costs about $10 total. There's no way that wine costs more than $7.
Well, I better got some quite a bit. Burn through them pretty quick. I'll get to you second and you first here.
Jay, I just want to ask you if you were
Please
back
wait for the
in your
mic.
20s again, would you do things differently right now at this very moment? Let's say if you want to get to where you are right now and you're in your 20s again and you're starting all over, what would you do differently to be where you are right now with all the change that happened over the time? What would you do the same?
I would make more movies and different kinds of movies, and I would make them cheaply. I wouldn't do that much different, but yeah, I probably would just make more movies and make them differently. I mean, just 5D is like the greatest thing that's ever happened, in my opinion. I mean, you can make a gorgeous film on 5D. You can borrow a 5D. I bet you everyone in here knows someone who has a 5D or the likes. And I would just keep making movies until other people tell you. It's really interesting too because we live in LA and you know, when should I move to LA and all that. And my opinion is don't move to LA until Los Angeles invites you to come to LA, because otherwise you're just going to be in LA depressed, surrounded by
People who've been asked to join.
everyone who has been asked to join and people who haven't. And you know, there's a joke where it's like you're in line at the grocery store and you tell the cash register, "How's your screenplay coming?" And they say, "How'd you know?" So I think just keep making stuff and be very. I mean, the other thing I think that we had going for us is that I knew that my movies sucked. This one I didn't know was good. I just knew something was there. And when we showed it to people, they didn't say, "Hey, good job, man. That's really a good job." They were like, "What
Laughing.
the fuck happened? What? Are you okay? Is he okay? What happened?" Was that, you know what I mean? It was like there was electricity about it. And I would encourage you just to keep making movies until that happens to you. Like your friends and your family and strangers will grab a hold of you and they will say, "How did this happen? Who are you? Where can I see more?" And that's in a weird way like the universe telling you to do more like that. And then you follow those things. And I think that is a beginner answer to the question of how do you find your thing, is you don't get to decide. Other people decide, because this whole filmmaking thing is an exchange between other people. But you go to film school and you get in your fucking head about making movies and you're thinking about it and you're trying to like decide no, you don't get to decide, you know. And the other thing I would also say is to clarify making lots of things is like, don't confuse thinking about making films with making films, because I do it too. And there's a certain amount of time where you have to incubate a movie inside of your brain, right? But then, like, you know, next week you're making another movie in your brain, and that other movie that you made last week that was the breakthrough of all of film and your own personal self is like boring as shit to you all of a sudden. So I would like to say that the manifestation of your ideas, make sure that happens. And that by that it means like, okay, it's an idea, but now it's an outline. And then you show your like innermost people that outline. And then they give you feedback. And so the feedback loop starts, and then all of a sudden it becomes like maybe a prose thing that's 20 pages long, and then it becomes like the worst first draft in the world, you know. But give it to the world and let the world give it back to you. And honestly, other things I try to say is don't make a feature film until you've made a great short film. I know that you don't want to hear that, because I didn't want to hear that. I made 2 bad features in my 20s that were like homemade still, but luckily they were so cheap that I could get up and do it again. But if you haven't made a short film that kills, don't make a feature. It sounds harsh, but it's so true, because I know we're all like mature people and we want to make features, right? You know, but like, and there's no excuse for not making 12 shorts a year. I mean, you can make a short a month now on a 5D, you know, for 100, 200
Make a short a day on Instagram.
You can. You totally can. And you can cut it. It's all free. It's all free now, you know.
Had a question down here? Oh, sorry, up here.
You're a director and a writer and an actor, and you have a family. How do you balance it all and kind of make it all happen?
I don't do anything else. Yeah, I just make movies and I take care of my babies, and this is the first trip I've taken that's kind of for me since my first kid was born, which is 6 years ago. And I'm here for like 37 hours. And I'm gonna pay big time
When you get back.
when I get home tonight. Yeah. But I would just say that I love doing it, and my brother and I have a philosophy, which is make movies, not meetings. And we just don't really mess around with a lot of stuff other than actually making things. And we force each other to be accountable to what I was telling you, to like, let's put this down. Let's manifest this shit. Let's make this happen. Let's stop thinking and talking about this stuff. Let's get it moving. And that is a big part of what determines what you were asking, is like what things live, what things don't. It's like you start putting stuff into the world. For us, it's our filmmaking friends, and we give it to them to get feedback, but we're not really looking for the feedback as much as, did they come alive when we handed it?
Yeah.
Did they come back and be like, what the fuck, man? Or they're like, yeah, I think you could use some first act improvements. It's like, all right, that's dead. You know, I think follow that energy, you know, that, because it's so hard what we're trying to do, you know, and it's like, follow that magical energy, because that's what will continue to like energize and make impossible things happen.
Good advice. We have time for one. Well, I'll let you guys shut me down. We'll keep going.
Can you talk about Transparent, which is a new show that you're starring in, but not writing, directing, producing?
Yeah. So this amazing thing happened to me last year, where this great writer, Jill Soloway, who was part of creating 6 Feet Under, she's starting to create a TV show based on her own life, where when her father turned 70 years old, he became transgendered. And I was at a party, film festival thing or whatever, and we met, and she was trying to cast this role of like the son, who was a 35-year-old Jewish guy who was like neurotic and smart and kind of wild and really, I don't know, he's a lot of things. And so I went through, I was like, I know all these guys, and I know all the 35-year-old Jewish actors in town. I'm like, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, they're all my friends. And she's like, no. And we kept talking, and she was like, it's you. You're gonna be the guy. And I was like, Jill, I don't really act. I have my own television show that I'm making. I don't really have time. And she's like, no, you're gonna be the guy. And she said, I apologize to all the actors in here who would love to do something like this. But I came in the next day and I read with her, and it was like this huge, transformative, powerful and fun experience. And she cast me in this TV show that is, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but I feel like I can say this because I didn't write it or direct it, but it's like, I think it's the best TV show that's existed in years. It's on Amazon right now.
With the incomparable Jeffrey Tambor.
With the incomparable
Who I
Jeffrey
once-
Tambor, yeah, and Gabby Hoffman's in it, and Amy Landecker. It's just an amazing, amazing cast, and it's really deep and really funny. Yeah, that's what the show is.
Just wanted to ask, how much of your scripts are actually, your films are actually scripted, and how much of the dialogue is improvised? And for the films that are mostly improvised, do you think it's important, how much do you think it's important to shoot chronologically?
All the movies that Mark and I have written and directed have been fully scripted and fully improvised. The actors are basically allowed to say and do what they want to do at any point in time. But, you know, I think it's mostly improvisation based on goals. They understand from the script what they're trying to accomplish in a scene, and they are allowed to use that dialogue. And in the end, they end up using it quite a bit. But we love the fact that they're off the page and anything can happen in that moment.
Do you have a favorite off-the-page moment? The thing that ended up in the film?
Yeah, I would say in Cyrus, when John comes to dinner for the first time with Jonah's character and Marissa's character, they were laughing and joking and they were eating, and Jonah said, seriously though, don't fuck my mom.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think if you wrote down, it would look big comedy.
Yeah.
But the moment that he chose to execute it, it was his line. He came up with it, and it became the trailer moment of the whole thing. It wouldn't have happened if we weren't free and in that way. And John didn't know if he was kidding or not. And it was so uncomfortable, and it was terrifying and exciting and hilarious.
Just to arrive at that particular tone of delivery and moment and all the reaction, all that kind of stuff. If it had been scripted, it would be Herculean because everybody would be pushing for the punchline.
You're right. Everyone would be teeing up for that one moment. That's exactly what it would have been. And instead, it was a passing moment. He threw it out there, and it was just a showstopper. John's face, I mean, it just flushed. I'm sure
the crew laughed.
Oh my God!
Actually, there's no crew; it's just you.
Yeah, there was no crew. Yeah, I mean, the camera was shaking a little. Me laughing behind it. And we do shoot chronologically in order to support that. Yeah.
Hi, Jay. I have a quick question about that initial answering machine short that you shot.
Mm-hmm.
Since you shot it so quickly, I guess in around 20 minutes, is there anything specific that you did when you were shooting it to get like the right quality sound to go to festival as well as lighting?
No, it just went into the onboard microphone of a $800 camera. And granted, it's a very controlled environment. There's an apartment, and I was very close to Mark at the time, so
You're at the proximity of that camera to his mouth is kind of right for an
yeah.
onboard
So
cam.
we kind of lucked out in a lot of ways. In subsequent movies, we just plugged a boom microphone into the camera itself. I mean, the entire crew for the puffy chair was myself and another guy. So we would light together and we would set it all up together, and then when it came time to shoot, I would pick up the camera and he'd pick up the boom and we'd plug in and just go. So it was like a documentary type scenario.
Awesome. Been told to shut down one more.
I can speak loud.
That doesn't go into the camera, though.
Oh.
Just like he was talking about.
That's right.
I was just curious, on your short that you showed, you guys do editing, but why was it was a different editor? Why didn't you edit it yourself?
Well, the editor was a friend of mine who has always been an editor, and there was another editor, David Zellner, who's the Zellner brothers are great filmmakers and they're friends of mine. We didn't edit it primarily because we didn't know what it was. We knew we had 20 minutes of like wildly interesting, weird shit, but it was very close to me, and I didn't really know if it was of value. I almost didn't submit it to Sundance. I was just like, well, that was a cool experiment. And I showed the footage. Oh, this is a great follow-up. I showed the footage to those two guys. And they were like, oh, man. Whoa. They were like, what happened, and are you okay? And we got through that moment, and they started, and I said, well, would you like to help me cut it up? And they helped me cut it up and shape it. And I think they helped me find what was funny about it, because I was still not,
You're still recovering from
I was
River's
still
breakdown.
recovering, yeah. I was still recovering, and so that's why they cut it, yeah.
Interesting. Well, Jay, thank you so much. That was really enlightening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.